Me too.
I was at a point in my life where I was in a big church, teaching children's church, leading the choir, but all I was doing was going to church. I mean, I was in church every time the door opened, but I wasn't doing nothing else. And then I got to going into the prisons just because, you know, Jesus said, you fed me when I was hungry, you clothed me when I was naked. You visited me when I was in prison. They said, when did we do that, Lord? He said, when you did it to the least of them.
That's right.
And so by doing it to them, we're doing it to him.
There's some in my eye. I'll do that.
All right, so before we get going, I know she's going to come back.
Yeah.
So will you spell your name, first and last name, so I make sure I get it right?
Okay, it's Jack, first name, Fultz is my last name, Fultz.
And where are you from originally?
Well, I was born and raised in Kentucky, but I'm 80 years old, and I spent most of my life in the South, in Mississippi.
Okay.
Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
Gotcha.
Most of my life in Tennessee.
And what did you do before you got here?
I was a land developer.
And you developed land for commercial?
For residential, I would go out into the country and buy a farm and create as many lots out of it as I could get and sell it in for resort recreational property. I'd build a lake, a clubhouse, that type of thing.
Wow. And so you're a general contractor?
Well, land developer.
Land developer.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, tell me, and spell your name first and last, and tell me where you're from.
My name is Marjie, M-A-R-J-I-E, with an accent mark over the E, Moore, M-O-O-R-E. I'm from a place called South Hill, Virginia.
I know where South Hill.
Yeah, it's 80 miles from Richmond and 80 miles from Raleigh.
Yeah, you used to go through it all the time.
Yeah.
I worked for Reynolds in Reynolds Corporation, and they were on Broad Street in Richmond. So we went through South Hill all the time.
Yeah.
So, matter of fact, that's probably where we're stopping to get gas.
Yeah, well, that's usually what everybody does. In between Raleigh and Richmond, that's usually what they do.
Very cool. All right, so he told me how you got here. How did you get here?
Well, unlike Jack, I've been in church all of my life, completely. All my church, went to Sunday school, sang in the choir and all that stuff. But missionary work in their definition and missionary work in my definition were two totally different things. I had no clue what he was talking about, none whatsoever, because it was never introduced into my life. I owned restaurants, and I met a gentleman who came in and he was talking about mission work. I had no clue what this man was talking about. No, because of the fact that missionary work where I come from, the predominantly fiery black churches, is you visit people in the hospital on Sunday, God forbid if they get sick any other time.
That's right.
And give them $25, parade through the hall, and you are done. I mean, that's missionary work. I mean, seriously. I mean, so when he was talking about missionary work, what brought me here was really a fact-finding mission, because I had no clue what they were talking about. And so I got on the internet, found Jack, came up here, and that's what brought me here. Curiosity, basically, because I had no clue what mission work was. And that's what brought me to the Appalachian Mountain. What kept me here is a totally different thing. But but seriously, I had no clue.
So you had a restaurant at the time and you sold it?
Yeah, well, my first restaurant, I lost everything. I lost my house, my car, kids, everything. And so when people tell me what you can't do, I don't listen to it because I know what you can do. If you put God first and put your mind to getting it done, you can get it done. Yeah. I've been homeless. People say you don't look like you've been homeless. How do you look when you're homeless? I don't wear the scars of being homeless, but I had to fight my way back. So I have very little tolerance when people tell me I can't do something. Very little, very little.
I completely get it, because anytime somebody tells me you can't do something, it just makes me mad. And I'm going to do it. If you tell me,
I can't do it.
My wife been with 28 years this year. She told me that I couldn't start a pressure washing business because I didn't know anything about it. We're going to gross over $150,000 this year. Not bragging, but that's just what you do if you set your mind to something. And I needed that kick in the pants to say, you know what, I am going to do it. And that's not even my full-time job.
Well, God taught me a lot about pride. See, pride is a horrible thing. You know, I was this big-time business owner, and I took a job as a waitress. I did. So I went from this big-time business owner to a waitress. and people talked about me, but while they were talking, God was providing. Exactly. So, it taught me, but if I had stayed in that little realm that Satan wanted, you know what people are going to say about you and all this kind of stuff. No, you do. God gave me a gift and a talent, and I used that gift and talent, and I was out of trouble in no time. Just came right on up out of it.
It's been an amazing journey. I don't have one of the bottom journey things where everybody, a lot of people hit bottom. I don't have that, but I have. And we were in church all of our life. My kids were all in church, but we were like you. We were in the Presbyterian church. Love that church to death. There's no better people in this world than the people at Benton Heights. But it's down the middle of the road, and if you are not being challenged, you're not going anywhere. And so, because I wasn't being challenged, and when we finally went to the church where I had all my buddies. And we play basketball together Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. That's why I'm not here on Tuesday and Thursday. I'm here on Wednesday because we play basketball at 6:30 in the morning. Yeah. And so, and I went there, and within 5 minutes, we knew we were in the right place because they gave me the courage to talk to two people who said, "You can do this. You can do this ministry, this mission." Whatever God's put on your heart, all you have to do is listen and get out of the way. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, that's kind of how we started, and that's kind of pushing me now because we're starting to get. He's opened so many doors in the last month, I can't keep up. Mm-hmm. So we, are you guys familiar with a church called Elevation in Charlotte?
It's a mega church.
It is a mega church.
Yeah.
A lot of misconceptions. Okay, I'll share with you some pictures from a mission that we did last night. It was the very first mission that we did, but their target audience are kids. I say kids because I'm 52, but they're kids from 20 to 35 that have no church home.
Have no church home.
They've been kicked out. They've been not welcome. They don't wear the right clothes. Yeah. They have piercings. They have tats. They have everything. They have drugs and alcohol in their past. Yeah. They're not welcome. And I didn't understand it. I thought it was a cult. Yeah. Not even close. Yeah. They give 20% of everything they take into missions. Abroad, here, everywhere. It is one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen in my life. And I was wrong about it. I was totally wrong. So, when God kind of leads you and he says, go find out more or whatever, probably should. So anyway.
Is that where you're going to church now?
It is not. Oh. I go to a place called First Baptist Indian Trail. There's about 8,000 members there, but we go to the modern service, and there's about 500 in our church, or in our services. So they have all of the Christian contemporary music and very lot less formal. So that's where we go. But Elevation is probably 20 miles away from where I live. And they have 30,000 people every Sunday on different campuses. And they have a campus in Toronto, they have one in Orlando, they have everywhere. And they're based out of Charlotte. So anyway. All right. So you told me where you got here originally, or how you got here. At what age did you guys become Christians? And you guys can answer however you want it.
I became a Christian in 1983, let's see, I guess I would have been in my 50s, maybe late 40s at that time, because I'm 80 now. So.
You're in great shape.
I'm telling you.
I'm in great shape. I'm just going to check this battery, just make sure it's good. So you keep talking, you're good.
Well, but I'm in great shape because I eat right, and I take care of myself physically, mentally, and spiritually on a daily basis. The Bible says to renew our mind daily. And our mind's got a whole lot to do with our physical well-being. If we think we're sick, we're sick. If you think you're well, you're well. If you have Mary came to Jesus, and But she knew that, or she felt that if she touched his garment, she'd be healed. If we have an attitude for healing, we can receive our healing. I do an hour of meditation every day.
Wow.
And a lot of it is about my physical body. If I have a pain in my body, I address that pain with my mouth. You know, death and life are in the power of the tongue. And so that's one of the things that I do.
How about that?
I forgot what your question was. But
when did you originally receive Christ?
In 1983, I was hooked on cocaine. I was a land developer, and I was hooked on cocaine and just had a lot of things going on in my life. I went to a church, and it was a big church that I had heard about. It was on a Wednesday night. The preacher, at that time, I guess he thought he was talking to a bunch of Christians. He didn't even give an altar call. He just did his teaching. And when he got through, I went up and told him, I said, I want to join your church and I want to get involved. Because, you know, I was in sales all my life and had heard a lot of motivational tapes. And like you were talking how to get things done, you know, you can do anything you want to if you want to. You just got to have that want to.
Yeah, I'm in sales as well.
Yeah.
So, well, I was, so how old were you?
Let's see, at that time in 1983, I would have been, 1983, how many years ago is that? That's 83, 93, 03, 13, that's 40 years. Yeah, so I would have been in my late 30s, early 40s. And there was an old man, I told you I was hooked on cocaine. I got to a point where I couldn't even, I didn't want to go out of the house. I'd get my cocaine and stay in the house. And there was an old Haitian preacher that kept coming by and talking to me, and he led me to Christ. Wow. And after that, was when I got involved with the church.
Unbelievable. I was 19, and there was I grew up Catholic, and my parents, my mom was full-blooded Lebanese, so they came through Ellis Island, and so it's either Catholic or Muslim, Roman Catholic in Lebanon. So anyway, when they came over, there was 4 girls, my mom and her 3 sisters, and one of them, the only one that's still living, is a nun, and she's been a nun going on 60 years, I think. She's in Scranton. So I was actually working on my degree and working at a kids camp in North Carolina, and this guy we were when kids had come out, and he was a youth minister. He was doing this for the summer, and he just said he said we were talking about church, and he said, well, do you know Jesus? And I said, yeah. I said, I grew up Catholic. He said, that is not even close to what I asked you. Are you saved? And I said, yeah. I mean, I grew up in church. And he said, no. He said, do you have Jesus in your heart? Do you know him? And I said, I don't think so. And that was when I was 19. And so it was one of those things where I don't even know his name. I remember exactly where we were, but I don't remember his name or anything like that. But I know he led me to Christ, and I was baptized this past year at First Baptist in Indian Trail, as were all 3 of my kids. And they made the decisions as they're not adults yet, but not all of them, but as people that know more than when you're a baby or when you're a 10-year-old or whatever, when your parents tell you what to do, you know, because we grew up in church as well. So how about you?
Well, that's kind of a question. Like I told you, I grew up in church. You know, I was baptized when I was 9 years old. Not because I knew what I was doing; it was because I was told this is time for you to be baptized. But I began following my grandmother, who was a great follower. She was a great Christian. She was, and watching the things that she would do, she would feed the hungry. She would, my grandmother would sew, and she would sit and make dresses for and clothes for boys and girls that didn't have any clothes. And there was this one lady. She was an alcoholic. My grandma would get up every morning and get her children ready for school, and then clean her up, because she would throw up all over herself and everything. And watching my grandmother, and she would read the Bible, me and her would read the Bible together and everything. So it wasn't so much as being in a church atmosphere that I learned about Christ by watching her. Of course, I have accepted him as my personal Savior, and I feel that we have a one-on-one relationship. My grandmother seriously used to set an extra coffee cup at the table every morning, and she would invite him in to come and have breakfast.
You got it, kid.
No, I'm not. I am not.
That's awesome. I've never heard that.
She, every morning,
Never heard that.
She and my granddaddy would have 3 cups of coffee. And she knocked the grandma, she said, well, if he ain't gonna come in if you don't invite him. And she would invite him until she took her last breath. And she was 100 years old. Wow. But she did, and she taught me that. She said, you gotta ask him to come into your life. He's there, but he wants an invitation.
And I believe that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never heard that.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Oh, yeah, she did every day. She would have an extra cup of coffee on the table for him. She would.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you guys both had a church background. I mean, you said you grew up and you attended church, but you weren't the church. I mean, you didn't until you walked up and you told that preacher that you wanted to be a part of. Because there's a difference.
He had a big church. He was in radio and television ministry. Had a big church, and
really?
And
where was he from?
He was out of Nashville.
Nashville.
But I got to the point to where, if you read the Bible, and I think a lot of churches don't encourage the people who come to church enough to read the Bible. But if you'll read the Bible, it tells us what to do. And that's how I got involved. I started with a prison ministry. Then I had heard about an old man who was a Catholic. He said, I've only been to 3 Catholic services in my life. And so anyhow, his name was Ralph Bidingo, and he started a thing called the Christian Appalachian Project.
Okay, where was that?
He was in East Kentucky.
Okay.
And I heard about him, I called him, and I told him, I said, I want to come see you. He started schools and churches and everything else, and the Christian Appalachian Project is still ongoing, and it's a big outfit. And I volunteered for him for 7 years. And
so like summertime, and you would just go a couple times a year and go work with him?
Say again now?
You would just go work with him a couple times a year?
No, I volunteered full time.
Oh, you were full time?
I'd moved to that area at that
wow.
time. So I volunteered full time. I drove his trucks. I worked in his warehouse. I